welcome to Good Grief, the podcast dedicated to demystifying and destigmatizing grief with compassion and humor. I'm Nikki. I'm an end-of-life doula and a grief coach in Columbus, Ohio. And today we're going to talk about everybody's favorite buzzword, self-care. We're going to talk about self-care today. And it's a term I have a love-hate relationship with, but as far as I know, I haven't done a full episode on self-care. I know I've discussed it briefly here and there, but we're getting to that point where I might repeat myself, and I am sorry. But I thought this might be a good topic now that we're getting into cooler months when a lot of times people are starting to feel a little more sad about the upcoming winter. I know I'm the weird one. I look forward to it, and my seasonal depression seems to go away about this time of year because I do not like summer, but I also recognize I'm kind of in the minority on that. So, all right, before we get into that, if you would like to help me out, you can go to patreon.com/NikkiTheDeathDoula. For as little as $1 a month, you can get some grief affirmations in your email box. You can get early access to my podcast or other bonus content. You can see videos of my interviews with my guests, all at patreon.com/NikkiTheDeathDoula. All the money that I receive from my Patreon goes to a special line item in my budget, or fund as you would, to provide pro bono services to those who cannot afford them. So I like to give back when I can, and I do that from the help of my patrons. So if you would like to be an amazing human being and help me out with that, that would be amazing. I would love to, have that. I have no eloquent way of saying that right now. Anyway, thank you for being here this week. This is my third episode. Yes, my third episode of season 3, assuming I'm putting this out when I assume I will. I do tend to record these a little bit ahead of time. I'm not doing them months out or anything, but at the time of recording this, I'm assuming this will be episode 3 of season 3, but I am also fresh back from my trip to Ireland and the UK, so my brain is a little mushy. I kind of turned it off for 2 weeks, which was amazing. I highly recommend it. Now, we'll just put that out there before I even get into the whole episode on self-care. Man, taking a vacation, whew. Even if you can't go, I'm not going to say everybody needs to go to the UK and Ireland, although it's amazing. Please go if you can. But even if you can just take a day to turn your brain off, man, what a beautiful, beautiful thing that can do for you. I never turn my brain off. I'm terrible at sitting still. I'm terrible at taking a break, but I was literally in a foreign country and I kept my phone off most of the time. So it was just a lovely break for my brain, but my brain is a little mushy getting back into things. So if I seem a little off, sorry about that. So yeah, let's start talking about self-care. I mentioned at the top of the episode, I do have a bit of a love-hate relationship with the phrase self-care because I feel like it gets overutilized and is sometimes an unachievable goal the way it is presented. There's a lot of stuff out there about self-care, and self-care it's going to mean something different to everybody, first of all. So you will probably see tons of stuff out there like take a hot bubble bath, drink a glass of wine, go for a long walk. Well, I hate baths. I don't like to take baths. I find them a little gross, some people can't walk a long walk. Some people are physically able to do that. Maybe somebody's a recovering alcoholic and a glass of wine is a terrible idea to unwind. So it's not all yoga and long walks. It's not what self-care is. Self-care is whatever helps soothe you and help you rejuvenate yourself and reset your batteries a little bit. So that might look like a long walk in yoga, or that might look like just lighting a candle and sitting quietly. That might be reading a book. That might be going for a run. Some people, I used to be one of those people. I'm not anymore, but going for a long run was a bit of a Zen thing for me, and I loved it. But whatever your self-care technique is best, and we'll talk about some tips here in a few minutes, whatever your self-care technique is what's going to be best for you, and that might not be best for the next person. So you're going to see a lot of stuff you probably already have out there in the world about like, this is what self-care is. Guys, self-care is whatever it is for you. So you don't have to buy a special product. If somebody's telling you that you will have all the self-care you need if you give them your money, they are just separating your money from your wallet. Keep that in mind. All right. So, as you know, grief can mean many things. I talk about that all the time here. Grief is not always just a death loss. Grief can be the loss of a job, the loss of income, the loss of a pet, a romantic relationship. Grief comes in so many different shapes and sizes, and it's not one size fits all, much like self-care is not. So prioritizing self-care is actually very important. That is something you'll see a lot in all this hubbub out in the world about self-care, is it is important to prioritize that. And that is very much true. Much like in the airplane when they say the oxygen mask comes down, to put it on yourself first before helping the person next to you. If you are unable to help yourself, you are unable to help anyone around you. And that can mean your family, your friends, your coworkers. If you're not taking care of yourself, you can't help take care of anyone around you. So how can we prioritize our self-care? How can we prioritize ourselves as we are also grieving? Because another thing self-care is it's not just not grieving or forgetting your grief or putting it away and saying, I'm just not going to grieve. The grief is still going to be there. Whether or not you're actively looking at it or actively processing it, the grief is still there. Okay, it doesn't go away. You can still honor that grief and take care of yourself. And I hear so many times, and I've felt it myself, like I can't take this hot bubble bath or do this wonderful thing for myself because this person is still gone and that's disrespectful to them. No, it's not. Okay. It is absolutely not disrespecting your grief or the loss or the thing, person, place, whatever it is that is gone, by taking care of yourself. If you were to be gone, wouldn't you want your family or loved ones to be taking care of themselves too? I would hope so. So talk about your grief. I mention that all the time. Talk about it with people in your life if you are able to. You can't carry it by yourself. You can't be isolated in your grief. It's just not good for you. So talk about it with people around you. Find a support group if that's what you need. If you have a friend you can trust that you know will actually listen to you and not just fill you full of platitudes or get sick, quote unquote, sick of listening to you. I've had that, guys. I've had that person that has told me they just can't listen to my grief anymore. That person is no longer in my life. Talk about your grief with other people. As we are working through our self-care, do not pressure yourself. Okay? Give yourself lots and lots of grace. Give yourself a break, because it's so easy to think, all right, today's my self-care day. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. And when I'm done, I'm going to be so much better. That's a lot of pressure to put on yourself, because what if you finish up that day of self-care and you still feel like crap? That does not mean you failed. That doesn't mean you self-cared wrong. Okay? I promise you. You will very likely still feel your grief at the end. You will still feel something. It's not going to go away overnight. And spending a day doing whatever your self-care method is of choice doesn't necessarily mean you're automatically going to feel so much better. You might feel a little better. I'm hoping you do, but you might feel crappy again the next day. But give yourself a break, guys. It's okay. I promise you didn't fail. You didn't screw it up. Okay? You just have to keep working at it. So, like I said at the top, self-care is going to look different for everybody. And it's not necessarily yoga and a long walk. And I'm sorry I'm using that a lot, but those are just the two things I see all the daggone time. Hot baths, yoga, and long walks. Okay? Those are all wonderful, relaxing things for most folks. But for some people, they might not physically be able to do most of those. Okay? I'm thinking of a couple people I know personally that could do none of those three things because of their physical limitations. So let's look at some other methods. I'm just going to go through some random lists I have found of other self-care things that you might not have thought of, or just very simple things that you can work into every day. You don't have to take a whole day off to do these things. You can do them 5 minutes sitting at your desk. Okay? So here are some just self-care ideas. Turn off your phone. I mentioned that, at the top of the episode with my vacation. My husband and I do this when we go backpacking. We have navigation device or navigation apps that work on our phone while they're in airplane mode. And most of the time when we're out there, we don't have cell service anyway. So I can't turn my phone all the way off because I'm using the navigation, but because I don't want to get lost in the woods forever. But I'm still in airplane mode. I can't get text messages. It's so freeing to just not have that distraction throughout the day. I can't check my email. I can't look at text messages or Facebook. Turn your phone off, even just for 15, 20 minutes. You will be shocked at how good you feel after that. Find inspirational quotes that you really like online and draw them out. Get a nice clean piece of paper or notebook and just write out that quote, draw some little doodles around it, make it pretty. Find the next appointment on your calendar, cancel it, or reschedule it. That feels so good to me. I really try not to do that, but sometimes, especially if I'm having the worst day ever and I know I've got a meeting coming up later that day and I just don't have the spoons to be on, I cancel it or reschedule it. So there you go. Read a book or a magazine or a nice article. I would caution to say go with a book or a physical magazine or book that is not necessarily on the internet, because the internet's real easy to get lost in. It's also real easy to find a lot of negativity out there. So read a physical book. Bake something for your neighbor or a friend. Make a batch of cookies or cake. Give it to your neighbors. Or keep it for yourself. That's what I would do. I love cookies. Sit still. And this is more for me than anybody else, but just sit down and don't do anything. And that's hard for me. Because even when I'm sitting still, I'm playing around on my phone or I'm reading or I'm watching something on the boob tube. Just sit. Sit. Write a love letter. Write a love letter to yourself. Or if you like, write a love letter to the person, place, thing, whatever that you are grieving. But try writing a love letter to yourself. Pretend you're a third party looking in at you and where you are in that moment. And write a nice little letter to yourself. Heck, make your own list of self-care ideas. Call somebody. I know I am terrible at this. I do not like talking on the phone, and I tend to be one of those people that's a little phone phobic. But sometimes I'm able to just put that aside and call somebody on the phone, because we don't do that as much anymore. And I know a lot of folks get upset about that. Nobody talks on the phone anymore. And I don't really either, because I don't like it. Plus, it just feels so invasive to call somebody out of the blue. But call somebody. Call somebody you know who'd actually love to hear from you. Chit chat with them for a little bit. Go grab a cup of coffee with that person. Find support. I'm always talking about support groups, and I have a very close friend, a guest on my podcast, Tori, who gets so much support from different groups on the internet who have the same disabilities she has, and that is a huge support to her. There was a day when, and I believe she mentioned the story on that episode, when Meta went down for a while, and Facebook, Instagram, all of that was just down. And, for some people it'd be oh, well, thank God. But that's where she gets all of her support, and she couldn't get to her friends for a long period of time. So that was very difficult. So find support, and it's okay to find support online, you guys. I tell you what, there's a website that is a social media for yarn crafters, knitters, and crocheters. A lot of my listeners might be familiar with it. It's called Ravelry. And it's changed a lot over the years, but it's overall, I have met some of my longest running friends there that I've never met in person. I have found some amazing support on Ravelry. And it's not just, it's a great place for patterns, but you go into the forums, you get to chatting with people, you find your group, and it's wonderful. So find some support out there. Find some people who are interested in the same things you are that may have nothing to do with your grief. You like board gaming? There's probably a board gaming group around you. We have found there's a board gaming bar here in Columbus. It's amazing. There's so many great groups out there. Find support. Find a group of somebody that you like. And if you are able, sit down and watch one of your favorite movies of all time. what a beautiful way to spend a day. And I love doing that too. I'll pick a movie I've seen a million times. Usually it's La La Land or Moulin Rouge. I love my musicals, okay? But I will watch those on repeat sometimes. And there is nothing wrong with that. Judge me all you want. I don't care. So that's a short list, but there's some great options out there for self-care. And I always encourage people. In fact, that's one of the first things I do with my clients is we go through the emergency self-care plan. So take a moment and write out the things that are important to you and what makes you feel good, what makes you feel centered, so that when you are in that moment where things are just more than you can bear, it's hard to pull yourself out of it. So having a written thing, a list, a piece of paper, even if it's like a mini vision board, a lot of my circles are getting real big on the vision boards again, where if you just have like a little thing you can look at to recenter you and remind you of what you can do to just kind of reset yourself, then please do that. It's super helpful. Okay. Like I'm always saying, give yourself a little bit of slack. All right. Cut yourself a break when you need to. Wherever you are right now is where you need to be. And you're not behind, you're not ahead, and you're not doing it wrong. You're right where you should be, okay? Just remember that. All right, so now that we are at the end of the episode, it is time for the Death Deck. Woo! All right, I'm going to shuffle up the cards here. I still crack myself up every time I do that. I don't know why. So, okay. Oh man. Oh, this is a fun one. Okay, so your spouse or significant other has died. Would you read their emails and journals? A, yes, I would read anything and everything. B, I would read their emails for practical reasons, but not their journals. Or C, nope, I respect their privacy and don't read any of it. So, I would go with B. I don't know that my husband keeps journals. I know he has binders that he doodles in and writes out ideas for games and role playing and stuff like that, because he does a lot of RPG. But I wouldn't. I don't know if I'd read those or not. I guess I would have to ask him if he would be comfortable. I don't know that I would need to or want to, but I don't know. I would read his emails for practical reasons, and he and I have had that discussion about, like, if something happens to me, here's where to find X, Y, and Z, and he knows how to access my email if he needs to, because a lot of the utilities are prepaid and they're all accessible via my email. So I have no problem if he wants to get in my emails after I'm gone. There's nothing exciting in there, you guys. Whole lot of newsletters on death and dying. Yeah, and same, I would read his email for practical reasons, but I wouldn't go snooping through and looking at, there's no need. I don't know what I would be looking for, but yeah, so I'd have to go with B. I would read the email, and I've made it kind of a joke, but a little bit serious too. I have told him if something happens to me unexpectedly anytime soon, that my journals go with me in the retort when I'm cremated. If I'm being cremated, there's no need for them to be read. There is nothing in there that people of future generations would benefit from. I promise you. I do have a separate travel journal I've kept, and I don't care if people want to read that, to read about all my travels. That's fine. But yeah. All right. I'd like to know what you think. What's your answer? How would you read your spouse's emails and journal? Do you do that while they're still alive? Please don't. That's an invasion of privacy. But yeah, I'd be curious. Let me know. You can reach out to me through my website, nikkithedeathdoula.com. You can find me on all the socials. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, all at Nikki the Death Doula. Tell me what you would do. I'm super curious. You can also chat on, if you become a patron on my Patreon, patreon.com/NikkiTheDeathDoula. There is a community there. There's a group chat, so you can chat with the other patrons and find out their answers to the death deck questions. So, all right, that's it, you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. I hope you have an amazing week. And remember, as always, your grief is yours. Your feelings are valid. Grief doesn't always have to suck. Good Grief with Nikki the Death Doula is produced by Nikki Smith of Nikki the Death Doula LLC in Columbus, Ohio. Nikki the Death Doula LLC is for consulting, education, emotional support, and guidance, and is no way considered a funeral establishment or licensed mental health establishment. Scripts, editing, sound design, literally everything with this podcast is done solely by Nikki Smith of Nikki the Death Doula LLC, with the exception of the music. The music is Cheery Monday by Kevin MacLeod. Licensing information can be found at filmmusic.io.